everybody, David Nagel here. Welcome to the Successful Mind Podcast. Today we're talking about desire points the way, but commitment gets it done. Come on and give a listen.
All right.
You're listening to the Successful Mind Podcast.
Successful people learn how to make their minds work for them. I'm David Nagel, and this is the Successful Mind Podcast. Hey everyone, David Nagel. Welcome to another episode of the Successful Mind Podcast, and I have a correction for you. On the last one, I told you about an Einstein quote, and I had not had it with me at the time, but I have it now, and I want to give it to you because I think that it's very important based on last episode and this episode. And here's the quote: "Look deep into nature, then you will understand everything better." Albert Einstein. Look deep into nature, then you will understand everything better. And I just absolutely love this quote. So to build on the back of what I talked about on our last podcast, kind of like the ideas that are passed down generationally to us that make success hard. There's a continuation of that, right? So the continuation is that if we get past, so let me just back up for a second. Sometimes my voice gets ahead of where my thinking is, and my thinking gets ahead of where my voice is. Let's say that a person gets through their childhood and they're thinking about what they want to do in their life outside of what they've been exposed to. They get past the obstacles of people telling them no or that they can't do it, if in fact that they're there. They get past the society obstacles of what norm is or what can or can't be done. They get past the obstacles of time and money, however that happens, right? Because, yes, some people are born into situations where there's more money than others, but there's always stories of people that are born with no money and they figure out how to get the money. So they figure out how to break through time and money. They figure out how to get past ability. They're determined to learn whatever it is that they want to go after. And they start looking for opportunity. Okay, so write this down. Desire points the way. Desire points the way. But commitment manifests the goal. Desire points the way, but commitment manifests the goal. Meaning that I believe we're completely born with the purpose of our life, the ability to realize what that purpose is by following our desire. We live in a world where all the resources are here and the ability to manifest resources that are not yet even seen, which that's the closest you can get to magic or alchemy, if you think about it. I think we forget sometimes that everything that human beings have created first was an image inside the minds of people. And I know that if you're a fan of this podcast and you listen to that, you've heard me say that 10,000 times. You're going to hear me say it 10,000 more times because you can't think of that enough. I think about it all the time. That was first an image. Like whenever I look at something, that was an image inside somebody's mind first. And then we created it. All of the resources that are here to be able to create anything that we see in our mind can be created. That's an absolute fact. It's all here. In order to do that, we have to follow the desire and break through the different levels that I talked about on the last podcast. And then commitment is where it comes down, what it comes down to. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. And this is why this is primarily where the Elite Mind 90-day program started. And we have people that do it for year after year after year. The idea started with when COVID first came around, I knew that one of the major problems was going to be, because of the lockdowns, that the channels of distribution would change unlike anybody has ever experienced before. Not unlike anything we've ever had in history, but anybody that's alive today has never seen anything like we went through in the last 3 years. That was completely new, okay? And whenever you go through that kind of a change with just rampant unknown all over the place, that creates massive anxiety, right? I'm not going to get into the mental health thing of what's happened because of this. The point being that I could see that this was something that was going to happen. I knew for a fact it was going to happen. And I wanted to help people through a process of teaching them how to think, be able to maneuver their way through it so that they can come out relatively unscathed on the other side. And I created the Elite Mind 90-Day Program with the idea of showing them how to consistently be able to trust themselves to follow through on whatever they wanted to follow through in life. Now, I have been consciously, proactively learning for 30 years. This year is 30 years, since 1993. That's when I really started a process of learning. I have been teaching for 24 years this year. Next year will be 25 years. And I have worked with hundreds of businesses, and I have spoken to probably millions of people all over the world in this time frame. The number one thing that I see that causes failure amongst people that actually get to the point where they go, I'm going to try and actually do this, is their ability to commit to what's necessary to manifest the life or the business or the wealth or the relationships or whatever it is that they're looking for. Because there's something fractured inside of them that they don't understand. Number one is that within this first 7 years of their life, something happened to their ability to trust themselves. See, if you're going to, there's something that we call it an over-under, right? We all have heard of what's the over-under on something, right? Well, with commitment, there's an over-under. And there's such a thing as being overly committed, and there's such a thing as being half-heartedly committed. When you're running into that, you're not at the level that you need to be in order to create what it is that you want. Because to be in the middle, to be with a solid commitment, the thing that has to guide that commitment is two very important factors. Number one is desire. Number two is trust. You have to be able to trust yourself, and you have to be able to trust life in the direction that you're going, which means that to trust life, you have to be okay with the changes that life brings you. And in the Elite Mind 90-Day Program, we teach people how to do this, because this is not something that's airy-fairy. These are actual skills that every human being is supposed to learn in their youth, but almost nobody does to the degree that they need to just like take charge of their own life and create what they want. That's why so many people end up working for other individuals. You have two kinds of people that work for other individuals. You have one kind of person that really believes that that's their purpose. That's what they love to do. They have no desire to own a business, but they love the work that they do. That's great. That's fantastic. But you also have people that if they had their druthers, right? If they won a lottery or something magnificent changed in their life, they'd be out the door in 5 seconds from wherever they work. And what's sad about that is a lot of people spend their entire lives doing something that they absolutely hate because they don't know that they can do something else. And they can't trust themselves to do something else. Meaning that how many times have you, and this is just an honest question to ask yourself. I'm not judging anybody because I've done this. I can't tell you how many times I've done this. How many times have you said you're going to do something and then you didn't do it? It's not as easy as it seems to say you're going to do something and then be able to consistently follow through on it. Number one, most people don't even realize what controls their behavior. And the other thing that they don't realize is why their behavior is actually locked into an idea subconsciously that really binds to the idea of what keeps them safe in the world. These patterns are developed in the first 7 years of our life. Most of the time, we don't even know how they were developed. Unless it was something big and outrageous and we can remember it, most of us don't remember how those patterns were developed. So, and then most of us had parents that were not 100% trustworthy. And again, I'm not being critical. I'm talking about human beings here. Human beings that experience, most parents have kids when they're relatively young. They're still trying to find themselves. They're trying to figure out what their place in the world is. They're trying to do some combination of what they were taught about how to show up in the world as a responsible individual and kind of do their own thing and figure out what it is that they want to do. And they're getting along, trying to get along with a new partner. Like there's a lot that's going on there. And then growing and adapting and changing and, all of that. To be able to completely lock into that kind of a commitment is extraordinarily difficult for people unless they're 100% conscious around the idea of why they're doing it to begin with. I honestly don't know how kids are doing it today. I really don't, because the consistent changes that are being flashed in front of their minds on a regular basis the changes happen faster than they have the ability to adapt to those changes. When I was a kid, things changed quickly, but you had some ability to emotionally adapt to the changes that were going on. Today, it changes before you even recognize what the first thing was. And then it changes. Like when somebody sits in front of TikTok and just flips through it half the damn day. What is going on with the mind in those scenarios? Anyway, the idea is that if you want to be successful, all success is built on something called consistency. And that means that there's a couple of things about success that people need to know. It isn't magic. It's not luck. It's based on cause and effect. All success is based on cause and effect. But it's not random cause and effect. It's cause and effect that's based on consistent behavior, consistent activities, consistent skill set, and consistent progress moving in the direction of whatever it is that the person is doing. If you are raised in a way where every time you want to do something new that you don't normally do, you want to change something, right? If you don't have the ability to be your word because you can't stick with it, then you don't have the ability to be consistent. And when you're doing all the changes that are required in order for a person to be successful, you're not going to be consistent with that either. My guess here is that this is kind of where the idea of difficult comes in. But here's what we have to remember. This difficulty is not happening outside of ourselves. This difficulty is happening inside of ourselves. This is our own mortal struggle with who we are, what we want, giving ourselves permission to do something or looking for permission from somebody else. It's an interesting phenomenon that most adults are walking around unconsciously wanting somebody else to give them permission to do something because they never made an authority transition in their mind from childhood to adult. They may everybody consciously knows that they're an authority of their life when they're an adult, but unconsciously, the things that unlock your ability to accept internal truth and responsibility for yourself, we're still waiting for permission. How do I know that? Because I've helped thousands of people literally become wealthy. And in that process, almost every one of them has said the same thing to me. I think I just needed permission to be able to do it. When they make the first step toward earning the kind of money that they really want to make, I don't think there's anybody that hasn't said that to me. I mean, I could be wrong about that, but even if it is, it's so significant that it's most people. And when I first started to realize this, I was thinking to myself, people are still walking around with the idea that they need permission to be, do, or have more than they actually have now. And until they can actually come to terms with giving themselves permission, there's not going to be consistent, because they have to trust themselves that it's okay. Now, what do you do when you've made significant mistakes in the past based on things that you chose, right? But then you get, like when you were a kid, you would get punished for it, or you would get grounded, or today people, they want to cancel you, or they judge you, or whatever. It makes it even more difficult to step in and trust yourself, because now you've got this lineage of memory and past history where you go, oh my God, I screwed up before in the past. What if I screw up again? So those things makes a person want to hang on to the only thing that they know. And it's absolutely required that if you're going to live your dream, if you're going to live your desire, if you're going to live your purpose, if you want to be successful, you're always stepping out into the unknown. It's a constant. And there we go again with consistency. So this is the thing that breaks most people down, because when they become inconsistent, if you remember on the last podcast, I talked about they rationalize. Well, what do they rationalize? They go back to rationalizing and making excuses out of the problems that they have. But those problems, and I've never seen this not true, are always rooted in the base idea that there's something that they can't be, do, or have, or there's something that they can't actually get their hands on from a resourceful aspect. This is why the two number one excuses that you hear from people when they can't do something is I don't have the time and I don't have the money. The third number one excuse is that my spouse won't let me do it, or I can't because of my spouse. Almost every other excuse a person comes up with is some variation or coloration of those ideas. So we hear that all the way back from when we're little kids. Have you broken out of that enough with consistency to really know that that's not true? That those obstacles don't actually exist. They're figments of our imagination. There's nothing true about them. We all have the same amount of time, and we all have the same amount of money, and we all have the same amount of resources. And I can hear the people listening to this screaming, going, but you don't understand what I was raised in. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. If it mattered, nobody from those specific walks of life could ever break free of the way that the world that they were born in. And we all know that that's not true. It doesn't have anything to do with the situation you were born in or raised in. It has to do with how you think about moving out of that situation. This is 100% mindset. It has nothing to do with what you get or what's given to you, because everything that you need is there for the getting for yourself. But you have to think about the right mindset. And this part is about, can I trust myself to be consistent, to do the things that are necessary, to have the resources, to have the time, to open the doors for opportunity, to be able to consistently get better at what I'm doing. You can't get better if you're not consistent, right? So everybody has the ability to get better, but you just have to be consistent. What about the things that you truly want to do? Can you be consistent doing those things? See, this is what it comes down to. So the key is to think to yourself, what am I consistent with and what am I not consistent with? If you can, and I thoroughly believe this, if you can build that foundation inside of yourself where you don't have to think about it anymore, in other words, when you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. There's nothing at that point you can't accomplish, but it has to be internalized as a pattern inside of your subconscious mind. The other thing that it does is something that's pretty remarkable. It gives you the power to really say yes to the things you want to say yes to and really say no to the things that you don't want to do. Because the value that you've created for yourself is, I'm going to do what I say that I'm going to do. So if I enter into something and I know that there's part of me that's going, you're not going to keep your word with this, I'm going to say no. And I'm going to say no and risk that other people might not like it. But I'm doing it because it's more important for me to be my word than to be a people pleaser. That's the deal. There will always be something that other people don't like when you make choices in life. You're the one that has to live with it. And there's nothing worse than saying yes to something that you know you're not going to follow through with and then getting all the backlash and BS from other people because you're not following through and you didn't want to say you were going to do it in the first place. You just submitted to the pressure that was showing up in that time. And that can come from family, friends, coworkers. I mean, you know the drill there. But this consistency thing, this is everything because it is the most solid foundation that you can build and then build upon. Everything goes up solid from that place because you have the skills, you have the internal patterns, you're following your internal drive and your desire. And when you're doing that, you develop this amazing trust. You trust life and you trust things that when they change, and you're okay with the change because you're not hooked on the thing. You're hooked on the direction of that your life is actually taking. All right, give that some thought. Now, again, if you want to know more about the Elite Mind 90-day program, go to lifeisnowinc.com/TEM90, and you could hear about all the details if you want to check out that program. It will change your life. Otherwise, I will see you on the next Successful Mind podcast. Bye for now.
All right.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. Desire points the way, but commitment gets it done. It's what accomplishes the goal. If there's anything that's difficult in success, it's that. And if you can master that, everything else, the success that you will have in life is easy because you don't wrestle with every day getting out of bed going, am I going to do it? Am I not going to do it? You just do it, cause and effect, handles everything else, and you become what you want. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Successful Mind podcast.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the Successful Mind podcast. If you like what you heard and you want to learn more, go to lifeisnowinc.com. I'll see you next week.